So the Las Vegas Raiders are getting ready to enter the 2026 free agency as well as draft. And we know that the Raiders pretty much have it sewed up that they're going to get their new quarterback as well as their new head coach. Now, who the head coach is going to be is obviously Clint Kubiak, unless something goes horribly wrong at the last minute. Then we also know that it is almost a lock that the Raiders will go ahead and draft Fernando Mendoza, who models his game after one Tom Brady, who is a minority owner of the Las Vegas Raiders. But what we don't know is what the Raiders will do with A, Max Crosby, and B, the rest of the draft as well as the free agency. And that's what we're going to talk about today, so stay tuned. All right, let's just jump right into the Max Crosby issue. Now, Jay Glazer opened up a can of worms and everybody has been talking about it. I, for one, have not. I've kind of left that on the side because I've been waiting to see what Max Crosby would say in accordance to what Jay Glazer put out there, which is Max Crosby is almost all but gone from the Raiders this year, and that it is not the Raiders who want it, but it is Max who wants out. And Max Crosby has been pretty silent on this. Well, he was just asked recently in an interview that I just seen last night about this very issue as to why he hasn't put these concerns to bed. And he came out and said, listen, in years past, I was very vocal about the coach that I wanted and how I wanted to see the directions of the Raiders go, and I got a lot of flack for that. And so this time I decided that I learned my lesson, that it's not my job to decide who the coaches are and where this team is going to go. And so I've just been focused on getting back to being healthy and preparing my body for this coming season. And so I've just been quiet, kept my head down, and worked on my job. And now I'm getting a lot of blowback for not being more vocal. So which one do you guys want from me? And I get this response from him. However, I do think it's a bit of a cop-out. Listen, I love Max Crosby. I'm wearing Max Crosby's shirt right now. But let me just tell you that all you had to do, Max, is just simply come out and say, no, like I've said a million times, I'm a Raider. I love the Raiders. I have a long-term contract with the Raiders. I just got a new contract. I do not intend on going anywhere. I intend on getting my body right and going out and being the most explosive defensive end for the Raiders in 2026. That's all he had to say. All this cryptic stuff was unnecessary. So does that mean that Max Crosby is feeling a little bit in his feelings and he does want to move on from the Raiders? He does want to go somewhere else? He doesn't want to play for a new head coach and a new quarterback and not know if the Raiders are ever going to be successful? Maybe, but even if he requests a trade, that doesn't mean that Max Crosby is going to get to where he wants to go. Does that mean Max Crosby is going to go to the Seattle Seahawks? No. If you trade Max Crosby, and what people are saying, like Jay Glazer, is that the Raiders would get a better deal than what the Dallas Cowboys got for Micah Parsons. That's 2 first-round draft picks plus some. So if the Raiders are going to beat that deal and you're going to get 2 first-round draft picks, do you want to do it with a team that's in the Super Bowl and your first-round draft pick is basically a second-round draft pick? No, you wouldn't want to do that, especially even because if it's next year, you think Seattle's going to be bad next year? No. They've got their franchise quarterback. They've got their franchise head coach. They've got a solid built team all the way around them. Even without Clint Kubiak, I'm sure they're going to still be good and in the playoffs. So no, you don't want to make a deal with him. So therefore, Max, you're putting yourself at risk of going to the Cleveland Browns, for God's sakes, or going to the New York Jets, for God's sakes. So if you think it's bad here, imagine paying half of your paycheck in taxes in New York to be on a team that's even worse than the Raiders. So there's my 2 cents on that. I don't think that Max really wants to leave the Raiders. I think he's in his feelings about some things right now, and I think he's questioning how far the Raiders can go with yet another new head coach and another quarterback at the helm, a rookie quarterback at that, and he's probably feeling a little bit of something. But I don't think that he actually wants to leave because he's not going to have a say in the matter. The Raiders don't have a no-trade clause with him where they have to get his permission. They can just trade him to whoever they want. And if you're going to trade Max Crosby, you trade him to the Jets and you get that high draft pick this year, and you're going to get a high draft pick next year because the Jets aren't going to be any better this year than they were this past season. So let's put that to bed. I don't think Max is going anywhere. Do the Raiders have some options there, and should they trade him? Well, I guess that depends. Max Crosby has had a couple of surgeries on his knee and his leg, and he hasn't been able to complete an entire season in 2 seasons. That's concerning. He also hasn't put up over, I think, 10 sacks per season since 2023. That's concerning. So I think if you could get a massive deal for him, the Raiders might be encouraged to do it, and you could go and you could draft somebody with that pick that would be an immediate replacement for him, and I believe would get at least 10 sacks in his rookie season. We'll talk about who that is in just a second. Now, let's talk about the free agency, because that's the first order of business before we get to the draft. And there are a few names out there that could be potentials. Now, I say potential because their teams could rework a new deal with them. Their teams could franchise tag them. The first up is George Pickens. The Raiders absolutely need a number 1 wide receiver. You have to be able to stretch that field, and you have to make it legitimate in order for Brock Bowers to really be able to excel in this offense. And that's really going to be the key here. George Pickens put up over 1,400 yards with the Dallas Cowboys, and all of the issues of him being a locker room cancer, being an on-field cancer, all of these issues that he had before in Pittsburgh seem to have gone away in Dallas. Now, we don't know how long that's going to last, but it's a good sign. So if his locker room issues are cured and Dallas either can't afford him, or they just decide to let him go or franchise tag him and then trade him away to a team like the Raiders, this would be a phenomenal addition to the Raiders, because now you have a legit number 1 wide receiver. Now you have a legit number 2 wide receiver with Jack Bach, and then you also have the best tight end duo, in my opinion, with Michael Mayer and obviously the best tight end, Brock Bowers. Then you add in the mix with Ashton Jeanty, you add in a Fernando Mendoza who is very accurate with the ball, again, models his game after Tom Brady, and the Raiders got a success-winning option there. But George Pickens most likely isn't going to leave Dallas. They'd be a fool to let him go, so I believe that they will franchise tag him if they can't work a deal right away. If that is the case and then he requests a trade, maybe the Dallas Cowboys work a trade with the Raiders and you give up some draft picks. If you've already traded away Max Crosby, maybe that would be a deal that would work out. Who knows? The next one is Trey Hendrickson. Cincinnati. 2024, this guy was an absolute beast. Best in the business defensive end, 17 and a half sacks, an absolute boatload of tackles, both solo and assisted. Pressures up the wazoo, and then he gets hurt after his 1-year extension with Cincinnati. Now, he doesn't want to stay with Cincinnati. He's 31, and since he doesn't want to give him a long-term deal, not only that, they probably can't afford him because they're in cap space hell anyway. So that being said, Trey Hendrickson, I think he would be a great addition. He's coming off of surgery. He's been on IR for most of the season. He's going to be healthy for day 1. This is a guy that you could bring in if Cincinnati lets him walk, which I believe that they will do because they can't afford him. So then you bring in Trey, you give him maybe a 2 or a 3 year deal. At 31, he's still going to be ultra productive for the next 2 to 3 years. No doubt about it. He's going to get you at least 10 to 15 sacks every single season. That's a no-brainer. You go out and you get him, especially if you're keeping Max, then now you have a crazy duo. But if you get rid of Max, he's an immediate replacement for Max. So either way, you're winning. And then you're going to pair him, if you get rid of Max, you pair him with a rookie who I think is going to be phenomenal in the NFL. We'll get to that in a second. The next name on the list is going to be Alec Pierce, deep threat, wide receiver of the Colts, probably the only white wide receiver that I can remember that has the number 1 attributes that this guy has ever. I mean, he is absolutely phenomenal, and he doesn't want to stay with the Colts. The reason why is because they don't have a solidified quarterback to throw him the ball consistently. And so he wants to be gone. He wants to move on from the Colts. And at only 24 years old, bringing him to the Raiders means that you now have an elite offensive weapon to combine that with Brock Bowers, combine that with Jack Bech, combine that with Ashton Jeanty and Fernando Mendoza, and you're off to the races. Again, they could franchise tag him. It's going to be expensive. the Colts have some salary cap issues as well. Now, the next name on this list is going to be Tyler Linderbaum, the center for the Ravens. Most likely, the Ravens are going to do everything they can to keep him because he's a perennial Pro Bowler. The problem with the Ravens is, again, salary cap issues, and Tyler Linderbaum wants a big contract. In my opinion, you bring Tyler Linderbaum, who is a Pro Bowl center, over and over and over again, and you move JPJ and make him a Pro Bowl right guard. These two combinations are why the Raiders would be successful. And I'm telling you this, I know a lot of people want JPJ back as center, and if you don't have Tyler with you, you do that. But centers go down. And center is the most important piece of the puzzle when it comes to that offensive line. If you have a bad center, you have a bad offensive line. If you have a good one, you have a decent, at least, offensive line. So to have two Pro Bowl caliber centers on your team, one playing guard, one playing center, and if your center goes down, you simply move JPJ back to center and you're still cooking and rolling, baby. So I think that this would be a fantastic addition to the Raiders. But it is a tag risk. They will most likely franchise tag him. Maybe you could work a trade with him if they do that. The next name on this list is going to be a running back. And you're saying, what is wrong with you, Mike? You got to be insane. How do we need another running back when we have Ashton Jeanty? Well, Ashton Jeanty was able to make it through the entire season as a rookie, and he did really good. But running backs is one of the most injury-prone positions in the NFL. So you have to have a plan B if Ashton goes down. Plus, Ashton needs to get a break every now and then. He's not Superman. I know he looks like Michael Meyer back there in the backfield, but my goodness, this dude does get tired. You got to sit him on the sideline. You don't want him getting hurt because he's losing his form and his strength through being tired. Breece Hall out of the Jets. He's a very versatile back. He's going to be a free agent. I absolutely love this kid. I think you bring him in, you make him your second running back, and that's going to give you some more depth on that roster at the running back position, because after Ashton, we really don't have anything in the running back position. Now, let's jump into the draft, and this is what everybody wants to talk about because it is going to be pretty exciting for the Raiders. Obviously, Raiders are spending the number 1 overall draft pick on Fernando Mendoza. There is no question about that in my opinion. However, if you've traded Max Crosby away to the Jets, you could end up with Ruben Bain Jr., who is an absolute insane elite pass rusher coming out of college, and I think he's going to be fantastic. He's out of Miami. He's a true edge rusher. There's some issues, people talking about his length and everything. I look at him kind of like a Warren Sapp style build with a motor, kind of like a Max Crosby, but I think he's more athletic. So again, if you go and get Trey Hendrickson and you bring in Ruben Bain Jr., and then remember we also have Tyree Wilson as well, you're going to have a really good pass rush, in my opinion, at that point if you've traded away Max Crosby. And that's the only way you're going to get Ruben Bain Jr. because you need that high draft pick because he is a top 10 draft pick. Now, the third one on this list is going to be Cornell Tate, wide receiver out of Ohio State. He's a true deep threat, could be your number 1. He's got great soft hands. He is just a playmaker. And yes, he'll be a rookie, so he won't be as polished as if you were to go out and get George Pickens, who's an elite superstar already. But he's on a rookie scale contract, so you could make that work. Offensive line are the next 2 positions, and that's going to be Francis Maugawa. I hope I pronounced his name right. Out of Miami, pro pass protecting anchor. This dude is an offensive tackle. He can play left, he can play right, whichever one you want to do. He's excellent in the pass protection, and that is going to be critical for your rookie franchise quarterback in Fernando Mendoza. Another guy I really like is Spencer Fano out of Utah, offensive tackle. Fantastic run blocker. Think about Ashton Jeanty, how excited he will be to run behind big old Spencer Fano, who is just pancaking people down the field as our star running back is just lighting people up. So these are all some possibilities for the Raiders. Obviously, the Raiders aren't going to get all of them. At best, we would get 2 of them because every single one of the guys I just mentioned are first-round draft picks. So the Raiders would have to do some things to be able to get any of these guys beyond Fernando Mendoza. That's all I got for you guys today. But hey, if you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you in the next video.